Good evening, and welcome to this forum featuring the two candidates seeking the term of judge in the 45A District Court in the November 4 general election. I am Jerry Burden, President of the League of Women Voters. I do not live in the 45A District Court area. The sponsors of this forum are the Oakland County Bar Association, the Detroit Free Press, the League of Women Voters Oakland area. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. We are directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our community strong. If you're interested in learning about how you can become a member or help us with our mission, I would encourage you to pick up some of the League's information available here tonight or visit our website, lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. The Oakland County Bar Association will not be endorsing any candidates. The Detroit Free Press may endorse a candidate after the forum. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the sponsors. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum, turn off all cell phones, and no picture taking is permitted. Before we begin our candidates' opening statements, I would like to introduce Thomas Howlett, President of the Oakland County Bar Association, who will give you some pointers on how to judge these candidates. Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Burden. My name is Tom Howlett, and I am President of the Oakland County Bar Association. You're about to see two candidates tell you why they believe they would serve you and your fellow citizens well as the district court judge for the 45A District Court. A judge is asked every day to make important decisions, apply the law, and essentially act as society's referee. If the judge is biased, incompetent, or intemperate, then everybody loses. On November 4th, you will be asked to make one of the most important decisions voters are called upon to make. Perhaps, though, the least understood elections are judicial elections. As a result, the Oakland County Bar Association, in collaboration with the League of Women Voters and the Detroit Free Press, has established these judicial candidate forums to help you make the important selection of the appropriate judge, a decision that could affect you and your neighbors for years to come. The American Bar Association, which is a national association of lawyers that has advised American presidents for over 50 years, has outlined 8 factors to consider in selecting good, honest, competent, and hardworking judges. And we endorse these factors and recommend them for your consideration. The first one is integrity. Is the candidate honest and open? Has he or she led an exemplary life? The second factor is legal knowledge and ability. Has the candidate demonstrated that he or she knows the law, either by good grades in law school, teaching at seminars, or simply demonstrating that he or she speaks and writes clearly and well? The third factor is professional experience. It is difficult to think of a judge who can competently hear disputes if the judge has not had much experience in the courtroom as a lawyer or other equivalent experience resolving disputes. The fourth factor is judicial temperament. Will the judge be someone who has a positive attitude, acts professionally, and treats all people with dignity and respect? The fifth factor is diligence. Is the candidate likely to be a hard worker who efficiently manages a caseload and decides cases promptly and is always fully prepared? The sixth factor is the candidate's state of health. Is there anything about the candidate's physical or mental health that would interfere with his ability to complete an entire term or perform the duties of a judge? The seventh factor is financial responsibility. Has the individual demonstrated prudence and responsibility in his or her own financial affairs? And the eighth and final factor is simply the question of public service. Serving on the judiciary is the ultimate act of public service. Has the candidate demonstrated a worthiness to accept the awesome position of responsibility by showing leadership in other organizations that have benefited the community throughout his public life? We strongly urge you to consider these factors as you listen to the candidates speaking. And most importantly, remember to vote on the nonpartisan judicial ballot. Thank you for your attention and your interest in good government. I'll now turn the floor back to Jerry Burden from the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you. The candidates seeking the position of judge on 45A District Court are Dale Schneider, the Honorable Jamie Wittenberg. Candidate statements will be timed by Judy Bateman, a member of the League. She will indicate when there's 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and when to stop. We begin the opening 1-minute statement with Mr. Schneider.
Thank you very much, Jerry. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, the Oakland County Bar Association, and the Free Press for putting this forum on. And I'd especially like to thank each and everyone in the audience and everyone's watching at home. My name is Dale Schneider, and I'm running to become the next Berkeley District Court Judge. I've been an attorney for almost 24 years. 17 years of that, I've had the privilege of representing the residents of the city of Berkeley as their prosecutor. I also was the Berkeley City Attorney for 11 of those years. I have prosecuted for 4 other cities. I've represented defendants throughout the state and Oakland County. There are 2 programs I want to bring to the court. I want to do a court in the schools program and a drug court. Neither of these programs would cost the residents any money, but they are innovative, they are wonderful, and they have a high impact, and they have a great benefit to the community, and I'm hoping you will see the same way as I do.
Thank you. Mr. Wittenberg.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Wittenberg, and I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters, the Oakland County Bar Association, and the Free Press for hosting this important forum. It has been my pleasure to serve the citizens of Berkeley as their only district court judge for the last 6 years. When I was elected by the citizens of Berkeley in 2008, I was the youngest elected judge in all of metropolitan Detroit and the second youngest elected judge in the state of Michigan by only a couple of weeks. I'm currently the chief judge here of the 45A District Court as appointed by the Michigan Supreme Court, and I'm also the elected president of the Oakland County District Judges Association, which represents the 32 judges here in Oakland County. I'm a proud second-generation Berkeley High School graduate, a graduate of Indiana University, and I also received my law degree from Wayne State University. I live here in the city of Berkeley with my wife, Stacy, and my 4 daughters, who all attend Rogers Elementary here in Berkeley. I'm proud of my accomplishments over the past 6 years. I'm proud of my relationship with the city, the mayor, and the city council, the public safety department, and the citizens of Berkeley. I'm asking the residents to keep Berkeley moving forward and to re-elect me in November.
Thank you. We will now begin our question portion of the forum. Candidates will be answering questions from our panelists, Michael Shaloff of the Oakland County Bar Association and Brian Dickerson of the Detroit Free Press. They will also be answering questions submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and relevancy by Thomas Howlett of the Oakland County Bar Association. If you have a question, just raise your hand. Our page will get you a card. You can write your questions out. We ask that the candidates answer the questions with their views only and not interrupt the other candidates. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer each question. Most candidates will have 60-second time limit with a 30-second follow-up if necessary. We begin the question and answer section with Mr. Schneider, and the first question will come from Brian Dickerson.
Mr. Schneider, good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
I believe that judges are like umpires and referees, and that if they know the rules of the game, they enforce them fairly and impartially on the field, they probably shouldn't lose their jobs just for making a call that's unpopular with the fans. Do you agree?
I do not agree. I do not believe that, I think it's all right. If you believe you can do a better job than the person is sitting there, that you have a right to run for the election. Anything beside that, I don't think would be truthfully American. I think being a judge, especially a district court judge, you can do so much more than just call balls or strikes. You can actually make a difference for your community and for other individuals within that community. And that's why I'm here. I believe that I do have the programs that are going to be able to reach all the residents and help our community, educating the kids, keeping them out of trouble, letting them understand there's consequences for their actions, having a drug court, which nowadays, unfortunately, too many people are addicted to things. Having that ability to rehabilitate them, get them to be useful members of society, instead of putting them in jail and just doing the same thing in 30 days.
Thank you.
Brief follow-up, if I could. You saw where I was going and started to address it. But what about Judge Wittenberg's first 6-year term leaves you convinced that you could do a better job than he could?
The Court in the Schools program. I've been involved in it for more than 15 years. It's a nationally recognized program. It reaches all the students, not just a select 10 or 20. And it's not a mock trial or where kids are trying to act as attorneys or judges. It's an actual courtroom in the auditorium with real defendants, real police officers, a real judge, real crimes that they're sentenced for. And in front of the children, the entire grades, so no kids are left behind. They will, it is a definite impact on their, when you do that type of program.
Thank you.
Judge Wittenberg's a slightly different question for you. You pointed out you were one of the youngest judges in the state's history. What, in the last 6 years, what experience have you acquired that makes you so much better qualified than you were 6 years ago?
Well, I think my track record speaks for itself. Over the last 6 years, I have a proven track record of protecting the community, educating our youth, keeping the high standards that I think this great city deserves. If you look at the 8 factors you go through, I think I satisfy every one of those factors. Now I've been sitting here for 6 years. In the past 6 years, I've handled over 60,000 cases that have come through this court, from a parking ticket all the way to a murder case. And I've been fair, I've been honest, I've been open, and the programs he's talking about, we do. I have a teen court program, which is, if you go through the specialty courts, that is something underneath where a drug court would fall. There's drug courts, there's veteran courts. The state of Michigan, as many people know, want the courts to collaborate. Royal Oak, where we're merging with, has a sobriety court. Oak Park has a veterans court. I have a teen court. And with real defendants, real cases, real kids that have gotten in trouble, that are learning from this experience. So the things that he wants to implement, I've been doing for the last 6 years.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Brian? Next question, we'll start with Mr. Schneider, and that'll be from Mike Siloff.
Mr. Schneider, good evening. Mike Schloff here. As a Marine Corps veteran, I am particularly in tune with the movement over the last 5 or 6 years in Michigan to establish in certain courts specialty treatment courts, including veteran courts. There's been some mention here just in the last 5 minutes of that concept. Overall, Mr. Schneider, what is your position with regard to the direct implementation of specialty treatment courts, not only a drug or sobriety court, but also a veterans treatment court, as has been very successful in this county in Walled Lake, or Novi, where I've been affiliated for 3 years, and also in Waterford and Oak Park? What is your position as it relates to the Berkeley citizenry?
Well, I think that's a great idea to have a veterans court. My father is an ex-Marine himself.
Never an ex-Marine, by the way.
Yeah.
I understand your concept.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No, I think they're great programs, and I think anytime we can help anybody, any of our residents, any of our servicemen, I think it's something that we need to do.
Thank you very much. Judge Wittenberg, same question.
Oh, I'm a firm believer. As I said before, the state wants all these district courts to collaborate. Oak Park also has a veterans court as well. As you know, Waterford has a veterans court. The judge in Waterford that started that program was my magistrate, worked for me here in Berkeley, and she's done things in Waterford, and the judges in Oak Park have started a veterans court. And that's why I firmly believe that the different courts in the different areas should have different programs. I have the teen court program, which is a real program with real defendants, with real kids that have gotten in trouble. That is one specialty court. Royal Oak has a sobriety court. Oak Park has a veterans court. If somebody gets in trouble here in the city of Berkeley, and I feel like they need to go into a specialty court, because we're not a very big court ourselves, I will send them to Oak Park. I will send them to Novi, depending on where they live, or I will send them to Waterford. So they will get that treatment because these courts are spread out, and that's what the state's looking for. We each have our own program. No one court can have every one of these specialty courts.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Next question will be an audience question. Is there anything unique to the district court in Berkeley that you think you are particularly well suited to handle? And we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg.
Well, having sat here just about in this seat, maybe a couple feet over for the last 6 years, this court is very unique. And I've had the privilege over the years to sit as a visiting judge in numerous jurisdictions to help out other courts. So I've seen the difference between my court. I'm the only one-judge court in all of Oakland County. I'm one of the only courts in the entire metropolitan area that does not have a magistrate. So I handle everything, as I said before, from a parking ticket to a murder. So this court is very special because it's very hands-on. I deal with the court administrator. I deal with a lot of issues that judges would never see because they're up on the second floor with administration, maybe, with their small staff, and they never deal with the clerks. My office is feet away from everyone else, and I feel like in this court, they don't work for me, they work with me. We all work together to benefit the citizens in Berkeley. And so this court is very unique, and I've been very privileged to sit in this seat.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
It is unique in the size. Regarding the town, it's also unique. Berkeley is special. Regarding the way it's run, it should not be unique. It should be running like every other district court judge within the state of Michigan. It should be streamlined. It should have the right programs. It should be there to help the community and protect the community. So it should, in many, many more ways, be consistent with all the rest of the district courts within the state of Michigan.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg, and it'll be from Mr. Dickerson.
Judge Wittenberg, periodically the Oakland County Jail is overcrowded, and a federal court will order the chief judge to reduce the population of the jail by, say, 5%. My understanding is that in the past it's common for the chief judge to look to the district judges and say, I'd like each of you to look at the people you have in the Oakland County Jail and give me a list of the 5% that you've sentenced to jail that you think can be released immediately. My question has two parts. Do you think that's an appropriate request for the judge to make of district court judges? And if it is, how would you go about deciding which inmates you believe should be released before their sentences?
I think it's an appropriate request. I see no issue with the request. It's up to the individual judge in each individual court whether they wanted to review that list and let people out. Personally, over the last 6 years, I'm aware of that, but I actually have not received something where they've asked me to release any prisoner. What I would get would be a letter from the jail, and I get this oftentimes when I do have to sentence somebody to jail, is that they're eligible for a program where they can be released or placed into an inpatient facility or placed into a different area where they can receive treatment, and I will look at those case by case. And I do get those. Literally every time I have to send somebody to jail, and it's not as much as some other courts, I get those, and I review them case by case. And I don't put somebody in jail unless I believe they should be there. But I will certainly consider if they've served some time, and the jail and these specialists believe they can go into a different program, I will always consider that.
Mr. Schneider, same question.
Would you rephrase the question again or restate
Sure.
the question?
The chief judge, I'd like you to imagine that the chief judge of the Oakland Circuit Court has asked you, as a sitting district judge, to identify some percentage of the people you've sentenced to the Oakland County Jail who are serving terms there who can be released immediately to relieve a jail overcrowding problem. First of all, do you think that's an appropriate request? And second, if you do, how would you go about deciding which inmates should be released immediately?
Well, first of all, I would like to say I think it would be appropriate to contact the district court judge that actually sentenced that person to jail. I do not agree with it. If I was sentencing somebody to jail, they should be in jail, and they should be in for the duration that I sentence them there. I do believe that, unfortunately, the way jail overcrowding is nowadays, I'd rather have the opportunity to make my own choice who I release and who I don't. Of course, I would not release any violent offenders, but there are some other defendants that might be incarcerated that I do not believe would pose a danger to society or the community, those would be the ones that I would lean towards.
Thank you.
Next question, we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg, and it'll be from Mr. Schloff.
Thank you. Judge, it's an unfortunate fact of life that there is a substantial amount of drunk driving in the county of Oakland, and I'm certain that that problem even occurs here in the city of Berkeley, perhaps on a reduced rate. A couple of the district courts in this county have a reputation for rather heavy-handed use of jail sentences, almost on a mandatory basis, for drinking and driving offenses. What has been and will be your philosophy with regard to the use of mandatory jail time for someone convicted of drinking and driving in this community?
Well, as many people know, one of the things about a district court is that there is no mandatory jail time. When I was a prosecutor, I knew certain cases like a felony firearm, obviously murder cases, there was mandatory jail. So I would look at it case by case. I don't believe that there's a number that should be set just because somebody committed a certain crime. I would look at the facts of the case. I do look at the facts of the case. I look at their prior criminal history. I look at whether I think that they can be rehabilitated, what benefit they could get from certain treatments. I'm a firm believer, in all honesty, that there are better programs in jail. I will put someone in jail if I have to, but I will look for other programs that I think could be more beneficial, because oftentimes putting somebody in jail will set them back. They'll lose their job, difficulties with the family, and they may be in a worse position than they were before they even picked up the crime.
Similar question. Your experience, Mr. Schneider, for I think at least 17 years or more, has been on the prosecution side of alcohol-related offenses. Therefore, what would be your philosophy going forward as a judge in this community with regard to the use of jail for drinking drivers convicted in your court?
Well, first of all, I have not solely been a prosecutor for the last 17
Okay.
years. I've represented 5 different cities throughout my 24-year career. But I've also done defense work, and I've represented hundreds of defendants for several drunk drivings throughout the state and Oakland County. Regarding a steadfast rule for jail for
Yes.
first-time offenders, I would definitely be against it. I know a lot of those heavy-handed judges, and like I said, I do defense work, so I understand that. I believe everything should be done on a case-by-case basis. There would be, I think, a rare occurrence where I believe somebody should need to go to jail on a first-time offense. If I do believe he's a danger, or her, a danger to himself or the community, then I think it would be appropriate. But most of the time, I think rehabilitation and education, and make sure that they, learn from their mistakes and get on with their life. Everybody makes mistakes. You just got to be able to move on from those.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next question will be an audience question. We'll start with Mr. Schneider. What recent book that you read have taught you something that you think would be helpful to you on the bench?
Well, it was kind of funny because I've reread To Kill a Mockingbird, and which is, about a trial down south. It's one of those things that I think you don't want to judge a book by its cover, and you want to take each individual as they come and make your decisions from there, not from what other people have stated.
Thank you. Mr. Wittenberg.
Having 4 young daughters, in all honesty, the last book I read was a children's book, if you want to know the truth. And what that has taught me dealing with 4 girls at home is patience, which I do bring to the court. It's and multitasking. You've got 4 little girls that want attention from their father, attention from their mother. They all want to be read to at the same time, and it often is difficult. And it's the same job I have here. I have to handle multiple cases, different cases at different times. As the only judge without a magistrate, I've got to juggle things, and I've got to be patient. And people are always tugging at me, whether it's my probation department, the court administrator, defense attorneys, the prosecutors. So children's books, in all honesty. I wish I had more time to read. I do. I read legal journals and different things to keep up on the law, but as far as at home, I'm reading books to my children.
Thank you. Next question. We'll start with Mr. Schneider, and it'll be from Mr. Dickerson.
Mr. Schneider, I'd like to get into the youth court issue you identified in your opening statement. Judge Wittenberg says he has such a program. You seem to suggest that you'd do something different if you were judge? What do you have in mind, and how is it different from what Judge Wittenberg is doing now?
Well, my program would be basically followed after the late Judge Martone out of the Troy District Court. He had a nationally recognized program. I prosecuted in that court, and I still prosecute in that court. He had a program where you actually bring real defendants, not kids that were, did something wrong, real defendants anywhere between 17, that's when you can be charged with a crime, all the way up until their 70s or 80s. And they brought the actual courtroom into the auditorium of the school, had the entire 8th and 9th grade, so we are talking 400 or 500 kids. You don't have just a select few. You reach all the kids. And then when the individuals are sentenced to crimes that they usually can identify with, the judge usually picks drunk driving, assault and batteries, theft, drugs, other alcohol crimes. Then when they see those individuals actually being sentenced to real crimes, sometimes even being led away in handcuffs by real police officers, it makes a major impact on how they do things.
Thank you.
Judge Wittenberg, talk about what you do and how it's similar or different than.
Well, as I said before, I have a teen court, and I disagree with Mr. Schneider. These are real defendants. They're young, and in all honesty, I think, especially at the district court level, you should be reaching out to the youth. Those are the people, you target them at a young age, and you hope that they make decisions so that they don't find themselves in adult court or find themselves facing more serious consequences. These are defendants that have taken responsibility, have committed crimes, and are judged by their peers. If there was a program that existed like that when I was younger, I would have loved it. You have kids the same age as you sitting and deciding what your sentence is going to be. They see these individuals that are sitting up in court, which is not an easy situation, and answering questions from kids who are acting like attorneys, and it teaches them experience as well. I've been in the schools. I've had classes come in and see real court here, have watched different things. I'm aware of that program. That's a different program. I do different things in this city.
Brief follow-up, if I may.
Certainly.
I assume these teen juries have no legal authority to impose a sentence, that you as the judge sort of put your imprimatur on what they recommend. Have you always done that?
Yeah. They will come up with a sentence, and you're correct. I have to basically sign off on it, and then I would sentence them. And most of the times I go along with their recommendations. They, in my opinion, have done a great job of sentencing some people much harder than others, and coming up with creative sentences. I may add something every now and then, but I respect, and if I saw something that was wrong, I haven't seen it yet, I do have the authority to change it.
Thank you.
Mr. Schloff, and you can start with Mr. Schneider.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schneider, we have been provided with copies of the OCBA questionnaires that each of you have prepared and submitted, and the League of Women Voters has also got a questionnaire with information. I think those are available online from both of those organizations for the public. In those questionnaires, I note that each of you, and I've also looked at some of your campaign literature, each of you, and I've noted each of you has identified certain endorsements. We all recognize that judicial seats are nonpartisan, and yet they're political in the sense that they're subject to this electoral process. I would like your comment on who your significant endorsers are, either individuals or organizations, and what impact you think receiving those endorsements could or indeed will have if you are elected as this community's judge.
Well, several endorsements. I guess two of the major endorsers that I have, Judge William Sauer. He's the retired judge from Berkeley. He's the one who knows who ran this court for nearly 2 decades. He's already endorsing me. Bruce Henderlight. He's the former chief or director of the Public Safety Department from Berkeley. I believe he had about 28 years for the city, and then he worked as the chief of police over in Clawson. I think endorsements are good, but I believe they're a small reason why somebody should be elected. The reason why somebody should be elected is what they've done in the past, what their track record is, how much experience they have, and what type of experience they have. I have all the experience, and I have all, the length of experience. I have 24 years practicing in numerous different courts throughout the state. So I've had the ability to watch what a good judge is and how they handle the court.
Okay. Judge Wittenberg, you also have identified certain endorsements. Could you identify the key endorsees to your candidacy for a second seat, second term, and also whether you feel that having any of these endorsements would have any impact on your future decision-making as a Berkeley judge?
Well, I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't have the endorsement of the citizens of Berkeley back in 2008 when they elected me as their judge, when I won the primary as a top vote getter and won the general election as a top vote getter. So obviously that's the biggest endorsement that I've received. I never had any endorsements when I ran in 2008 from anyone within the city of Berkeley. None of the council members, not the mayor, not anyone in the police department. I'm sitting here today, I'm endorsed by the current mayor of the city of Berkeley, the former mayor of the city of Berkeley, the entire city council, I think all but one member of the school board, law enforcement, and while he's got some formers, I've got the current. And I honestly believe that Berkeley should continue moving forward in a better direction. I think the court is much better off now than it was when I inherited the court, and those endorsements don't change my decision-making, but they show that what I've been doing over the last 6 years is making a difference.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next question, we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg. What has been one of your most difficult cases, and how did you handle or decide it?
Well, that's a good question. In all honesty, every case that comes in front of me is a difficult case because the person standing in front of me, whether it's a traffic ticket, whether it is a serious misdemeanor, whether it is a civil case where they're being sued, that is probably the most important thing going on in their life at that time. It may be one of 30 cases I have on the docket. It may be something that I've handled multiple times, but for that individual, whatever decision I make and whatever happens in this court could be the biggest thing that happens to them. I know that people worry about tickets, people worry about cases, and I understand that. And I know that when somebody is standing in front of me, they usually don't want to be here, and they just want to have a fair hearing, they want to have an opportunity to be heard, and they want justice. And so I take every single decision that I make as a difficult decision and something that I put a lot of thought into.
And the same question, Mr. Schneider, but how we relate to you as an attorney, your most difficult case, and how did you handle it?
I think the most difficult types of cases that I deal with are the people that sometimes will not listen to reason, or sometimes they have mental issues. Trying to be able to work with them and resolve an issue, that is the probably the toughest, trying to get a resolution for those type of situations. I don't believe there's any case that is always difficult. I think most of the time they're pretty cut and dry, whether it's deciding a traffic ticket or a drunk driving or even assault and battery or a civil case. You have to look at each individual case and look at the facts of those cases, but I don't believe there's any case that is extraordinarily difficult to proceed with, other than sometimes dealing with some individuals like that.
Thank you. Next question will be from Mr. Dickerson, and we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg.
Mr. Wittenberg, victims usually or often have the opportunity to come before the court and talk about the impact of a crime or a civil wrong that's been done to them. What sort of influence, if any, should the victim sentiments have on the sentencing process?
Well, I think it's an important part of the legal system. I will always give an opportunity for a victim to speak prior to sentencing. That's the appropriate time for them to address the court and tell me something. If a victim is asking for me to put somebody in jail or asking for me to put somebody on probation, just because they're saying that doesn't mean I'll follow that. I will look at the motives for that. Oftentimes when you have family situations, whether it's a domestic violence case or something in the household, people may say things out of fear. They may come up and say he's a good guy, she's a good woman or whatnot. They deserve probation when you know they'll probably want this person to go to jail. But I always take that into consideration. I also take into consideration the facts of the case. I take into consideration what they pled to, what their prior criminal history is, all those different things. But I will give them every opportunity to speak, and if I come up with a sentence that is different than what they're requesting, I will explain to them why I came up with that decision.
Mr. Schneider, same question. How big a role should victims' sentiments play in the sentencing process?
It should play a role. I don't know the size of the what you're talking about. I think as the judge, you want to listen and take in everything that the victim says. Some crimes are more severe towards victims, whether it's an assault and battery or being struck as a drunk driver, leaving the scene of a property damage accident or a personal injury accident, leaving somebody helpless. I would definitely listen to the victim, but ultimately, as the judge, I'm the one who's going to be deciding what type of sentence that what they have to have.
Thank you.
Next question will be from Mr. Schloff, and we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg.
Judge, once again, referring to the OCBA and League of Women Voters questionnaires, there's one question that was not on either questionnaire that I probably shouldn't ask, but I'm going to anyway. If you were a tree, what kind of a tree would you be? I'm just kidding. This was getting so serious, we had to lighten it up a little bit.
Get my notes.
That's not my real question. My question is this. Berkeley is a small town. You, therefore, are the only judge in town, unless you merge with Royal Oak. But what is, in your mind, the significance of community involvement, the need for community involvement by the local city judge, and what has been the level of your community involvement in the past 6 years, sir?
I think it's very important for a sitting judge to be involved in activities that benefit the community. There's certain activities as a judge you can't be in, whether it's fundraising for the school or different things, but I think it's very important. And I've been involved in numerous activities as the judge here in Berkeley because I think it's important. I'm a Berkeley High School graduate, so I think I'm a role model for a lot of students. I have daughters in this community, and I care a lot about this community. I'm involved in the Tri-Community Coalition. I put on presentations. I've done seminars with the other judges. I've done things for youth assistance. I've done the 10th grade mock interviews at the high school. I've spoken to classes. I think it's very important to be involved in the community. And all the organizations that I've been involved with within the city, I think, benefit the community, and they actually give something back to me. It gives me a perspective to see the youth. It's been a while, maybe not as long as some other people since I've been in high school, but it's good to get that input. Dialogue Day is one of the best experiences that I've had as a judge.
Dale, similar question. What is, in your mind, is the significance of community involvement as the local judge in town, and what has been and will be the level of your community involvement?
The extent of my community involvement would be to basically to the court and schools. I don't believe a sitting judge should be doing some of those things that I think you're inferring. I don't think they should be going out and fundraising or hanging out with and finding best buddies throughout the city. To a point, the judge is supposed to be aloof. They're supposed to be impartial. They're not supposed to have many friends. You want an unbiased person sitting in this seat.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Next question, we'll start with Mr. Schneider. What is the single largest challenge currently facing this district court?
Probably the biggest challenge would be to streamline and dealing with ever-shrinking budget. That is probably the toughest. And also, when I was here prosecuting for 17 years, just the small size of the clerk's area, you're basically having 7 or 8 people in such a small area. Sometimes it's difficult to get work done, and that's unfortunate, but that's the size of the courthouse in Berkeley. Everybody is pretty much on top of each other. And unfortunately, there's not enough money to expand. So that is probably, the biggest problem.
Thank you. Mr. Wittenberg.
Could you repeat the question, please?
What is the single biggest challenge currently facing this district court?
I think the biggest challenge right now is that this court, for the second time in several years, is set to merge with another jurisdiction. As many people know, this court did merge with another jurisdiction. We were part of the 40, what is now the 45, which was the 45B. It took up a lot of time, a lot of resources for the entire city, the council, my staff, to prepare for the merger. Then we merged, then we unmerged. Now we're preparing for another merger. The city of Berkeley has been great. I don't see any budget problems with the city of Berkeley. We've come in under budget. They've given me the money to operate this court as I've requested. The building isn't perfect. We do what we can with this building, but the merger with Royal Oak is the biggest issue that we have right now, and it's the most time-consuming issue that we have right now. And that is something that me and my staff have been working on and will continue to work on.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Schneider will come from Mr. Dickerson.
Mr. Schneider, we've seen in Oakland County and really all over the country the expansion of specialized courts for all kinds of defendants, here in Oakland County for veterans, for substance abusers, particularly for alcohol abusers. Elsewhere, I've read about courts for defendants who are illiterate, courts for single parents. Is that the future of the judicial system? An increasing specialization and different court for every different set of personal circumstances, or are there some of these that seem not to be working and should be discouraged?
I'm not sure about not working and being discouraged, but I think you have to do it on a need basis. I think some of the programs that you had mentioned, there's a real need for those. And I don't think we should shortchange the residents or the public, saying that, no, we have to go back to what it was 20 years ago when we didn't have these programs. There's a reason why we have these programs. They're beneficial. Some of them are new, and some of them are still need to be worked on. But I'm really not in a position to say we want to get rid of this one or that one, or get rid of the Veterans Court since it's only been around for a few years. I think those are great ideas. And what I've seen with the sobriety court, a drug court, they are fantastic. I mean, just the idea of if you complete the drug court program, there's a 50% chance less likely that you're going to commit a similar crime in the next 2 years. It's something that we should be doing. We should have.
Judge Wittenberg, same question. How do you evaluate these specialized courts after watching them from the bench for 6 years?
Well, I think you've got to look at it by jurisdiction. There are a number of specialty courts in the country, in the state. There are domestic violence courts, there are gambling courts, there are campus drug courts. We don't have a university here, but if you were in East Lansing or you were in Ann Arbor, that would be a good program. So I think you have to look at the district that you're in. But I think the future isn't so much coming up with all these different courts because they already exist. I think it's the courts collaborating. If I don't have a veterans court, somebody shouldn't be punished because they don't have this program here in Berkeley. I should be able to send them to Waterford, send them to Oak Park. And so I think that the future is that you have these little hubs that are the courts, and each of them have their own programs where you can send if needed. Otherwise, I've got a great probation department, I've got a great staff, we can handle cases. Go ahead.
Practically speaking, what would have to happen for that kind of collaboration to exist? Would it require legislation? Was it something the Supreme Court could do?
There's already legislation that really is telling the courts to collaborate, to come up with concurrent jurisdiction. There's laws that are passed that are requiring that we have concurrent jurisdiction, whether it's taking a felony plea in district court, whether it is sending cases to other courts. So that process is already in place. It's just a matter of educating attorneys and getting the judges together, and that's something we talk about as me being the president of the Oakland County District Judges Association are these issues, is how can we all get together and serve not only our communities, but the region as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will be for Mr. Schneider from Mr. Schloff.
Yes, gentlemen, we have been instructed as moderators of this proceeding to never let it never allow it to get negative. And so my question will be have a positive focus. You each know each other, I think, very well. At least you've known each other for the last 6 years. Indeed, this is the second campaign where you've run against each other for the seat. So my question with a positive bend is as follows. Mr. Schneider, what is the best judicial trait of your opponent, of Judge Wittenberg, and what is your best judicial trait?
I could try to think of a judicial trait that I think would be, for Mr. Wittenberg, but I think I'll let him do his own.
I'm going to press you. That's my follow-up. I'd like you to pick one.
Well, I guess
Please.
his best judicial trait would be that he doesn't press people. There are some judges out there that harangue people and belittle people. Truthfully, I've never seen Mr. Wittenberg do anything like that to an individual. And that's one of the things that, I find, some of the worst judges that do that. I think when somebody comes into a courtroom, they should be treated with dignity and respect.
Okay. And what about your positive judicial trait?
That I will treat everyone with dignity and respect, and that I'm extremely passionate with everything that I do regarding a court and schools program, a drug court, or just how I would run the courtroom. I think everybody deserves their time at the podium, no matter how it turns out.
Judge, what is Dale Schneider's best judicial trait, as you know him, and what is your best judicial trait?
I don't think he has a judicial trait because he's never been a judge. But as far as a prosecutor, he seems like a nice individual. I don't believe that with any of the cases that he was, harsh on any particular crime or anything. It seemed like he handled all the cases, pretty fairly. I know that was in conjunction with the police department, but I can't speculate as to what his judicial trait would be because he hasn't had the opportunity to sit on the bench like I have. As far as my judicial trait, I would think that it's it's patience, it's being fair-minded, it's being open, it's being willing to listen. I think the most important thing for individuals that are in a district court, probably any court, is that they're heard. They may not agree with my decision, but if they walked out and they knew that they gave everything, explained everything, and got everything in, I think a lot of times they're very happy. There are, unfortunately, judges and courtrooms where people are cut off, and I will always allow everyone to give their final word. One of the things I always do is any more questions, like a ping pong match, any more questions, so that they feel that they're satisfied.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next question will start with Mr. Wittenberg. Why do you believe you can have a larger positive impact in Berkeley as a district judge as opposed to a practicing attorney?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Why do you believe you can have a larger positive impact in Berkeley as a district judge as opposed to a practicing attorney?
Well, as a district court judge, you're probably handling cases that, if someone's going to be in a court, most people, it's going to be a district court. So you're handling cases where 99% of the people that are coming through are people that made mistakes. They're not evil people. They're not bad people. And I think the judge's impact is in sentencing, in their orders, doing things to protect the community. A regular judge can come advocate, but it's the judge that is going to make sure that everything is done fairly, almost like the referee, which has been used as an example before, making sure that both sides have their fair day in court. When you're an attorney, you're really only on one side, and you're arguing for that one side. When you're the judge, you're trying to make sure that there's fairness on both sides. So I think that's the most important thing, is that the judge can reach across to both sides of the argument and decide which is the most fair, where a lawyer really should be only advocating their position, and that's one-sided.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Can you state the question again?
Certainly. Why do you believe you can have a larger positive impact in Berkeley as a district judge as opposed to a practicing attorney?
Oh, that's very easy. As a district court judge, your weight carries a lot more. Your name carries a lot more weight, whatever you do. I was the city attorney here and prosecuted here for 17 years. I went to the mock interviews at the high school probably for 8 of the 10 years that I was prosecuting here. Being a district court judge, you can do much more. You can bring many more programs. You can bring programs into the school. You can bring programs into your court. You can make much more difference with individuals than as I was just prosecuting, a group of defendants, or if I'm representing just 1 or 2 defendants. Your hand reaches so much more people as a district court judge.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Wittenberg, and it'll be from Mr. Dickerson.
Mr. Wittenberg, how much do you expect to spend on this campaign, and where will it come from? Who will your biggest contributors be?
You looked at him. but you-
Forgive me.
I don't know how much that I anticipate to spend. I know it's probably not going to be as much as I did last time. I think the good thing about this campaign is it's going to be a number of different contributions from a number of different individuals. In all honesty, I think that is probably the worst part about any campaign is raising money, is asking people for money. I think the best part about a campaign is knocking doors. That is the best. The reason I believe that I was elected in 2008, it's the reason I hope to be reelected this year. It's not so much about raising money, it's about getting out into the community, meeting with the people, reminding them to come out and vote.
Will most of your contributions come from lawyers who appear before you?
Probably.
Why, as somebody whose lawyer didn't contribute to your campaign appearing before you, why should I not be concerned about that?
Because I don't make any decision based on how much money somebody gave me or whether they have given me any money. I think people are giving donations, and again, it's not to me. We're saying me, but really it's to the campaign, it's to the committee, because they believe that I'm going to be fair, that I'm an impartial judge, and that I do a good job. And it wouldn't affect how I rule in any particular case. And that's all public record. You can see who gave and who didn't give. And that is the system that we have here in Michigan. Whether people like it or not, that is the system that we have to run by.
Mr. Schneider, now I'm looking at you and directing the question to you. How much do you expect to spend on the campaign? Where will it come from?
And I think anywhere between 7,000 to 12,000, kind of a ballpark figure. It's pretty low, and because I'm not doing much of the advertising or the radio or the television, my main goal is knocking on every door in the city. We've been walking. I've been walking with a group of people. We've hit an inordinate amount of doors so far. We're going and trying to talk to each and every one of those residents, explain the programs that I want to bring, explain the experience that I can bring to the bench, and what I want, and why my passion is to be the next Berkeley District Court judge.
Brief follow-up. I think Judge Wittenberg accurately described the existing judicial campaign finance system as one in which judges and judicial campaigns are financed by the attorneys who appear before those judges. Is that a good idea?
I don't know if it's a good idea, but that's the idea we have. And I didn't finish answering the last question regarding who is donated. I've had defense attorneys, I've had judges, I've had prosecutors, I've had family, I've had a lot of residents, because they all know the type of person that I'll be as a judge.
Thank you.
The next question, we'll start with Mr. Wittenberg, and it'll be from Mr. Schlaff, and this will be the last question prior to the closing remarks.
Excellent. I never get the last word at home, so that's great. Each of you gentlemen are, by comparison to Mr. Dickerson and I, fairly young, I would observe, and yet you're both very experienced trial lawyers. You each have substantial careers, primarily on the prosecution or city attorney side, I would note, but you're both very experienced trial lawyers. Certainly each of you has seen one particular judge in your experience that you would hold up as a role model to inspire you in your judicial career. Who would be that role model to each of you? Tell us who they are very briefly and why they're your role model. I was just tricking you. I'm not sure who that's to.
Mr. Wittenberg's first.
Okay, I'm sorry. You judge, please.
I've learned a lot from a number of different judges. I've had the privilege of being a prosecutor in Wayne County, Macomb County, now being a judge in Oakland County. So I've seen over 100 judges, and I've learned just as much from bad judges as I have from good judges. A couple of the judges, one's in the questionnaire, Judge Mark Switalski, I was his prosecutor in Macomb County. The way he treated people in his courtroom was phenomenal. The way that he prepared for his cases, the way that he questioned people, the way that he anticipated what the questions were going to be, and that he was always prepared was great. I interned for Judge Friedman in federal court, who I have the utmost respect for. Working in federal court was phenomenal. It was a great experience. He is so humble, so intelligent, and it was while I was in law school, and it did plant the seed for me to be a prosecutor because I loved being in the courtroom. I didn't want to write briefs. I just wanted to sit out and watch jury trials, and it was a great experience, and that was the first judge that I'd really watched. And but there's been a number of different judges, but you're pinning me down to a couple names. That's what I'll give you.
Okay. Dale, you're just a little bit older, but you're more experienced. So who's your role model?
About 10 years older. I've been before so many different judges. I've prosecuted for 5 different cities. I've represented hundreds of defendants. There's some outstanding judges out there, and I don't know if there's really a perfect judge. I've been, before so many of them, but there are so many good traits that you can take from the times that you're in the courtroom. And likewise, you can, you learn a lot from the bad judges. You want to make sure you aren't a bad judge because of the reason why they have those labels. There's, I could go with Judge Michael Martone. He had the Court and Schools nationally recognized program. Worked with him for over a decade. He had a fantastic heart, and he wanted what's best for the kids and the kids in the schools. I remember Judge Boley, also in the Troy District Court. He's probably been on the bench for close to 40-some years. In the beginning, he was probably one of the harshest ones. Now he's not. But he's stayed pretty much consistent his entire career, and he treats everyone with respect, so I appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That concludes the time for questions. In reverse order of the opening statements, the candidates will now be given 1 minute to make a closing statement, and we will begin with Mr. Wittenberg.
Thank you. Once again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, the Oakland County Bar Association, and the Detroit Free Press for hosting this forum. It's my second time doing this, and it's been a great experience. Forums like this are a great opportunity for citizens to learn about judicial elections, which, unfortunately, as stated before, not a lot of people know facts about. I am proud of my record as Berkeley's only judge for the last 6 years, and I hope to once again earn the vote of the citizens of Berkeley. I urge people who are researching judicial candidates to look at the 8 factors as mentioned to consider when electing a judge. I would also advise people to look at the public satisfaction survey that was done on this court. The numbers that I have received are well above the statewide average as far as how I've handled cases. But no matter how anyone decides they're going to vote, please also remember to turn over the ballot and vote the nonpartisan side. There's unfortunately a drop-off here in the state of Michigan. And I also would urge anyone for more information about my campaign or background to visit the website, www.judgejamie.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Free Press, League of Women Voters, Oakland County Bar. Thank you for putting the forum on. Thank you for everyone being here and all the residents at home watching the forum. I have the experience. I have the knowledge. I have the passion. I want to be the next Berkeley District Court judge. I can do so much for this town and for these kids that we need a judge that will be able to do those type of things. I ask you to review my website, Schneider4judge.com. It has all my information, tells my experience, tells about my family, tells about my kids, that they both go to the Berkeley School District, and my wife works at the Berkeley School District. I try to keep them out as much as I can because I think that should be. This is a judicial forum. This is just regarding my qualifications regarding the other candidates. I believe my qualifications far outweigh his. Plus, I have the programs that's going to help keep our community great as it always is. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the forum. The sponsoring organizations would like to thank the audience, the candidates, the panel members, and Berkeley Cable TV for making this forum possible. For further nonpartisan information on these candidates, check the websites of the sponsoring organizations, www.ocba.org, www.lwvoa.org, go to voter guide, and also on Vote 411. When known, rebroadcast times of this forum on the local cable stations will be on the LWVOA website. The forum can also be viewed on the ocba.org website. Remember to vote November 4, 2014. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you and good night.